It was a November evening in 2018, and I was home alone taking care of my 8-year-old son Noah and 3 of his friends during a sleepover. My wife had gone out for an important event, so it fell to me to supervise them without being too obvious. They were in Noah's room, making so much noise it felt like a small war was happening inside. Whenever the noise got too loud or suspiciously quiet, I would sneak over to the bedroom door and listen carefully. It was my wife's instruction, and any husband knows you don't argue with what your spouse tells you to do. During one of these checks, I heard strange tapping sounds coming from the window. I ignored it initially, thinking they might just be playing around. But then, silence took over the hallway. I became nervous. Something wasn't right. I crept back to Noah's door and listened again. I could hear faint giggling and whispering. When I opened the door, I saw the kids sitting on the rug surrounded by scattered toys. To my surprise, the window was wide open. I scolded them about keeping it shut and lowering the noise before leaving the room. While heading to the kitchen for snacks, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye, a dark shadow sliding past the outside window. I rushed back to Noah's room and warned the kids not to go outside. That's when I realized there were only 3 children in the room. Ethan, Noah's friend, was missing. Panic set in as I yelled at Noah to tell me where Ethan was. They all pointed to the open window, explaining that he had left with the explorer to find treasure. A mix of emotions hit me, but mostly dread. Knowing I couldn't fit through the window, I ran out the front door and caught sight of a man holding Ethan's hand, walking toward a car. I shouted for them to stop. They turned around, the man let go of Ethan, jumped into a silver Ford Focus, and sped off down the street. I brought Ethan back inside, no longer comfortable with the sleepover continuing. I called the other parents, explained what happened, and suggested they come pick up their kids, which they did. Initially, Ethan's parents criticized me, but they eventually thanked me. Their son is still good friends with mine. The kids said a random man had appeared at the window, knocked, lifted it open himself, and spoke in an explorer's voice, asking one of them to join him on a treasure hunt. The fact that this happened in the supposed safety of my own home, and that it actually worked, is what confuses me the most until this day. It was an autumn evening in September of 2019. My friend Lily, my cousin Jake, and I needed somewhere to relax and smoke. There were woods near Lily's house, only a short walk away, and being the adventurous 17-year-olds we were, we thought it would be perfect. In hindsight, we should have stayed behind Lily's house and watched horror movies instead, but we didn't. When we reached the entrance to the woods, we smoked, explored, and overall had fun. You could clearly see anyone entering or exiting the woods from the nearby streets. Lily lived in a nice neighborhood except for one house beside the woods, an old, rusty tin structure surrounded by pigs in the backyard. We often joked that it looked like something out of The Hills Have Eyes. As we were walking back along the path leading out of the woods, we spotted a gray-blue Chevy pickup truck. It started up, and we jokingly decided to run away from it. Shockingly, the truck began following us. Every time we stopped, so did it. Panic set in, and we took off running. There was a small hill that we hid behind so the truck couldn't see us. After a while, the truck passed, and we got up, laughed it off, and started walking out of the woods, thinking it was a joke. After about 5 minutes of walking, we approached the exit but were struck with fear when we saw headlights blocking the way out. Looking into the truck, I saw a large man wearing a hat and a red shirt, though that was all I could see from the distance. In panic, Jake pulled out a small pocket knife, but I didn't trust his ability to use it effectively, so I took the knife. We all ran into the woods until we thought we were safe, waited for a moment to gather our thoughts and breath, and finally left the woods and went to Lily's house. Months later, on Lily's birthday, we ventured into those woods again. This time, there were 6 girls and 2 boys, thinking safety in numbers would protect us. After entering the woods and walking for a while, we found a path that Lily, Jake, and I had seen before but never explored. To get to the path, you had to go down a small steep hill. We all made it down and soon came upon a fork in the path leading 2 ways. We chose to go left, which led to a short trail ending at a small abandoned building. There was a wooden ladder, a small fire pit, and perhaps the oddest thing we found, saws hanging by strings from tree to tree. Given that we were all stoned, perhaps we didn't take the findings as seriously as we normally would have. Deciding to explore the right side of the fork, we didn't go far before finding something truly horrific, a hangman-like structure with a noose on the ground, an old pair of shoes nearby, and a shovel. I had never felt so uneasy in my life. We took pictures of everything and quickly left the woods safely, making a personal promise to never go back. We believed the man who chased us in the pickup truck had something to do with what we found in the woods. Thank God he didn't catch us. I'm 32 years old and live alone in a small coastal town in Washington state. My grandmother, who is about 75 years old, lives just a few blocks away. She has always been extremely protective, and despite her age, she still finds ways to involve herself in my life. Recently, she started using an extra key I gave her years ago to check up on me, especially on weekends. Although I know her intentions are good, it can sometimes be unsettling. Imagine coming home late at night after being out with friends and finding your grandmother sitting in the living room, worried because you didn't answer your phone. Still, it's hard to say anything because she does it out of love. It was a Friday night around 3 a.m. when everything happened. I had gone out with friends to a local bar and was making my way back home. After walking the short distance to my apartment, I reached for my keys in my pocket. When I touched the doorknob, I realized the door was already unlocked. Oh, it must have been Grandma, I thought. I quietly opened the door, locking it behind me, and placed my keys on the entry table. There was a note written in her handwriting, "Left your dinner here." Next to it was a plate covered with aluminum foil, probably leftovers from her meal. I didn't see any sign of her, so I assumed she must have gone upstairs to rest in the guest bedroom, something she often did. As I passed through the living room, I heard soft sounds coming from upstairs, like someone walking slowly down the hallway. At first, I ignored it, thinking it might be the wind or the old house creaking. But as the sound continued, curiosity turned into concern. I crept upstairs silently, trying not to make any noise. Once upstairs, I checked every room, the guest bedroom, the bathroom, the closet, but no one was there. Confused, I descended back downstairs, only to notice something strange. The kitchen light was on, though I was certain I'd turned it off before going upstairs. Worried, I returned to the kitchen and saw a dark shadow sliding past the side window. My heart raced. I ran to the phone and immediately called my grandmother. After 4 rings, she answered groggily, asking what was wrong. I explained everything, mentioning the footsteps upstairs. There was a long pause before she replied, "That's impossible. I'm sleeping right here." Her voice was firm and unwavering. It was then that I realized something terrible. Someone, or something, had been in my house while I wasn't home. Deciding I couldn't stay there another minute, I grabbed my things and headed straight to my grandmother's house. When I arrived, she was already waiting at the door, visibly worried. I recounted the entire story, and she seemed genuinely concerned. She suggested we call the police. 2 officers arrived shortly afterward and conducted a thorough search of my house, including the attic and basement. They found nothing unusual except for the unlocked door. Even so, since that night, I've avoided being alone in my house late at night. Occasionally, I catch myself staring at shadows on the walls, wondering if I'm truly alone.